Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday Night Live. As per usual, I'm going to give Facebook a couple of minutes to let everyone know that I've gone live and wait for you all to start tuning in. So as soon as you've logged on and you can see me and it's working and all that, please hit one of the icons or comment to let me know that you're here so I know that we can get started. I'm really excited this evening because I'm coming to you live. I'm still here in New Zealand. I'm at Dustalone Ranch at the moment, where I have just finished our balance and transitions clinic over the weekend. And I'm very blessed to be able to be staying here and working with the horses here for a few more days until I head to the South Island. So I'm really excited about that. And New Zealand certainly turned on the weather for us all weekend. It was beautiful and sunny, and even today it was nice and sunny. It started out a little rainy and a little cool. It has been a little bit brisk, but it was certainly nice and warm today. Hey Hillary, how you going? Thank you for joining. So this evening what we're going to be talking about is nerves in competition and how we can overcome those nerves or at least manage those nerves. Hey Barbara, thanks for joining. And what I want to talk about, or what I'm going to go through, is just a few things that we can do to help with our nerves in competition. And it's probably a pretty timely topic, considering that Phil and I are about to head over to America in about 2 or 3 weeks to compete at the Cowboy Dressage World Finals. It's our third year in competition over there, and certainly I myself personally had about a 10-year break from competition before we competed at Worlds for the first time, and so my return to competition was on the world stage. So it was pretty confronting, it was pretty daunting, and I definitely was nervous. So I'm going to share with you some of the techniques that I used and some of the techniques that I've used subsequently in order to try and manage those nerves in competition. I don't think that we ever get to a point where we're not nervous at all, unless we're, of course, professional competitors that are doing it every weekend and then it just becomes second nature. Certainly if you do something often enough, I mean, I know when I first started teaching my clinics or even private lessons, I was pretty nervous and made sure I did a lot of preparation and things like that. And now I don't get nervous at all. I just walk out there and, I just love it so much that it all just happens pretty smoothly most of the time. So I'm very fortunate in that. And that's just been years of practice. So, hey Sarah, hey Kate, thanks for joining. So in no particular order, I just took some notes today about what I wanted to talk to you about. You can probably see that I'm crouched here in front of the fire, so I'm nice and warm, and I'm just going to share with you some of my notes. So the first thing that I wrote down in regards to calming ourselves or managing our nerves. Hey Sharon, thanks for joining. Hey Leah, welcome. The first thing that I want to talk about is practicing. And what I mean by practicing, I know that a lot of us go out there and we train our horses and we train the maneuvers and we do that kind of stuff, but we don't really take the time to practice competition, which logistically, all of you are probably sitting there going, there's no way to practice competition because once it's competition, it's competition. But as actors and theatre people and actresses and things like that they all do dress rehearsals. So I would definitely recommend doing mock competitions where you can hopefully get a friend or a family member or anyone really to just come along and pretend to be the judge or the steward or whatever it is, the competition that you're doing. And as long as you take it seriously and really ride those patterns or ride those tests as if you were in front of a real judge, what we're trying to do is get your body to react in the way that it's going to react at the competition, so you can feel those feelings and you can manage those feelings. So of course, if you get your friend to come over and you have a mock competition and you laugh and joke and play around all day, then you're not gonna get any of those reactions from the body because you're just mucking about. So your brain's going to know that basically. So hey Anna, thanks for joining. So what you want to do is go ahead and and do up a mock competition, and I would even take it to the point of doing dress rehearsal. So it sounds a bit weird, but the way that our brain works is that we associate emotions with things. That's why we can get emotional when we hear a particular song or a piece of music, or we smell a particular smell, maybe from childhood or something like that. That's how the brain works. So when you get dressed on show day and you do your hair and you get those show clothes on and all that sort of stuff, what it can start to do is begin the anxiety or the nerves immediately, because your brain has an association with that clothing. So if you're going to go ahead and do some mock shows, not only to help you in regards to the nerves that come up managing with the judge, which you don't necessarily have to do a dress rehearsal for, I would recommend doing a couple of mock shows where you do a dress rehearsal. And I'm sure that if you've got friends that compete who suffer the same, suffer from nerves and things like that alongside with you, I'm sure it wouldn't be very difficult to get a group of people together who would be more than happy to run a little mock show, a little dress rehearsal, and get everybody used to riding out there and calling tests, and if you're doing dressage or whatever it is that you're going to do. So practice that mock competition, and like I said, taking it seriously so it actually triggers those nerves and things like that in the body. Go to training days and clinics is my next suggestion. And the reason that it's important to go to training days and clinics is so you get used to riding in front of people, not just your friends and not just people in the backyard. If you go ahead and start to practice riding in front of strangers, most people are going to be a little bit nervous about that. If you get nervous in competition, you're probably going to be a little bit nervous at training days and things like that, riding out in front of people that you don't know. So the more training days and the more clinics and things like that you can go to and put yourself in that situation, you're doing all the things like going to a show, you're putting the horse on the float, you're saddling up in a strange location, you're doing all that sort of stuff, you're riding in front of people. So again, it gives you the opportunity to feel the nerves and feel things like that arise in you, and then it gives you the opportunity to manage those nerves and remap the pathways in your brain to tell your brain how you want to deal with the situation. I'm not going to deviate, but I just want to go on a little sideline there. Some of us may have nerve responses to competition, which come from years and years and years ago, come from our competition as a teenager or as a child. I know that our first visit to the States, where I rode in the Cowboy Dressage World Finals, my previous competition would have been when I was in my early 20s. So I had the same physiological response in my body to riding in my 20s. Now, I like to think that I'm a little bit wiser than I was when I was in my early 20s, and so what happened is my body started to bring up the same emotions and anxieties and things like that I experienced then, because that was the only point of reference that my brain had in regards to competition, was something that had happened 10 or 12 years previously. So what I started to do was manage it, and now coming up to our third year, the second year, last year was a lot easier, and I'm fully confident that it'll be a lot easier again. In fact, by the time I was riding on the last day last year, there's photos of me and I've got a huge grin on my face because I finally relaxed into it and I'm enjoying it. So I'm fully confident that that's exactly how I'm going to be from the first day this time, and I'm really looking forward to that because I've been able to remap my response to competition. Hey Malcolm, thanks for joining. Angie's saying, and having to be prepared in someone else's time frame, she finds that difficult. So yeah, if you're going to go and do up a mock show, you can go ahead and do up times and things like that, exactly what's going to happen at a show. So you've got a deadline, you've got to be ready and ride at 10 o'clock or 10:15 or whatever it is. Absolutely. So when you get to the show, make sure that you keep busy, but not frantic busy. So what I like to do when I get to the show is get the horses off, have a walk, give them a walk around, get them settled into the boxes, walk around and make sure that I know where the office is, make sure I know where the bathrooms are, make sure I know where the canteen is and when the canteen's trading, all of those little housekeeping things that I need to know, where my arenas are, all that sort of stuff. So I immediately settle the horses in, then I go around and make sure I've got a good lay of the land and I know where everything is, and then I'll probably sit down, grab a cup of coffee, have a bit of a chat, say hello to people, wander around and see if I can find people that I know to have a bit of a chat with, and then come back to the trailer and start organising myself. So keeping busy at a show and not isolating yourself or just constantly going over your tests or going over your patterns, which is only going to cause you more anxiety. You're probably not going to retain too much more information than you already have in your brain by the time you get to the show. I'm assuming that you've already read your patterns and things like that before you go to the show. So obviously you might have a read through to refresh, but you're not actually going to sit down and try and teach yourself something at the show. So instead of, hiding away and keeping yourself busy with the horses and the boxes, get external stimulation, preferably from people who aren't nervous, because if you go and hang out with someone who's nervous, then they're going to feed your anxiety and you're going to feed their anxiety, and neither of you are going to feel any better. So what you want to do is go and find someone who is a friend or someone who's not competing or someone who is a seasoned competitor, have a bit of a chat, have a bit of a laugh, make sure you get that laughing happening, because that's going to release endorphins and things like that to help you feel better on the day. So keep calmer on the day. The fourth thing that I've got on my list is preparations, and what I mean by preparations is what I've got referenced here is a packing checklist. So I know, hey mummy, how are you? Or dad, if that's you, but I doubt it, it's probably mum. Welcome, thank you. Preparation and checklists is packing and making sure that I haven't forgotten anything, because I know that a lot of us will feed our anxiety by thinking, have I got my gloves? Have I remembered this? Have I remembered that? Did I bring enough feed? Did I bring boots? Did I bring buckets? Things like that. So the more worry that you can feed anxiety is kind of like a fire, or worry or nerves or whatever you want to call it, is kind of like a fire. So the more wood that you put on, the more it's going to burn, and the hotter it's going to burn. So the more that you can take away anything to fuel that fire, the better off you're going to be. So I'm a real list maker, and I've got packing checklists that's for a show, for camping, for if I'm in a motel room, for international travel, for this, for, I make sure that I've got every single thing written down. So when those questions, they're still going to come up, but you'll be able to say, yep, I know I've packed it, it was on my list. Yep, I know I've packed it, it was on my list. Yep, I know I've packed it. So you're constantly answering those questions with confidence instead of actually going into an internal struggle about whether you actually do have something. So preparation using checklists and things like that is really important, and preparing as many days in advance as you possibly can. So there's nothing worse than getting up on the first day of a show, or getting up on the morning of a show and thinking, oh no, I need to iron my shirt. Oh, I need to do this. Things like that can be done days and weeks in advance. You can go ahead and create a checklist that, starts a month out from a show. Make sure that I've got my numbers. Make sure that I've got my shirts ironed. Make sure that I've got, the jeans I'm going to wear, or whatever the clothing or whatever it is that you're going to wear at that show, and what your horse is going to wear and what your horse is going to need, and making sure that you've got straw for the boxes, or shavings for the boxes, whatever you're going to do, water buckets, feed buckets, making sure you've got feed. All of that stuff can be done weeks in advance. You don't need to wait till that last week and go, oh, okay, I need to go buy 6 bales of hay, I need to go buy 2 bags of hard feed. Get it all ready to go, so you can just pop it in the car the night before and you can be packed and ready to go. So preparation well before the competition is the next thing on my list, which we just spoke about. So anything that can be done weeks in advance, go ahead and make sure that it's done. Another thing that I really like to do is have a bit of an itinerary for the show, and I'm smiling because I know that some people are going to be like, I'm not going to write an itinerary for what I'm going to do at the show, but I kind of just suggested one to you, or the pattern that I like to use, arrive at the show, walk the horses around, find their boxes, put their boxes in, all that sort of stuff. Hey Mandy, thanks for joining. Hey Simon, how are you? Had a great weekend with Phil. My ute will be warm tonight, but you know what? It does have a 3-ton towing, and I'm pretty sure it's got a 1-ton carrying, so that makes it a truck by your own definition. Hey Jess, thanks for joining. So an itinerary at the show is just a bit of a list, so I know exactly where I'm going to be, exactly what I'm going to be doing, and a general timeline. So I know with most events, unless it's a hack show or something where you're going in and you don't have times, but a lot of our disciplines, you get your times, you know your ride times. So, from the time that you know that your ride times, you can go and prepare a little bit of an itinerary and go, okay, I'm going to arrive at the show. This is the time I want to arrive at the show. It's going to take me an hour to walk the horses around and do their boxes and all that sort of stuff. And that way you're not walking around going, oh, it's 10 o'clock. What should I be doing? Oh, I've got 3 hours before I ride. What do I need to do? You'll have it on your list. You can go have breakfast. You can go find some people to talk to, all that sort of stuff. So the more control you can have over what you're going to do and when you're going to do it is going to reduce your nerves. The night before the competition is something that I want to talk about, and the night before the competition, I think it's really important to not stray too far from our routine. So I know that I've made the mistake in the past where I might think, I've got to get up really early, say 4 or 3 or whatever it is to travel. And I'll think to myself, I'll go to bed early. And it just backfires on you. You go to bed early and you're laying there because your normal going to bed time is 10 o'clock at night, and you've tried to put yourself in bed at 7 o'clock so you can get an early night's sleep, and often it'll backfire on you. So I certainly am not saying that you need to stay up right until your normal, 10 o'clock if you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I wouldn't be going too far extreme either. I wouldn't be going to bed too early. And the same goes for if you usually have a glass of wine or something the night before, I wouldn't stray from that and think, oh, well, I won't have a glass of wine tonight because I've got to get up early in the morning, because anything that you change in your normal routine is going to have a physiological effect, either positive or negative, but it's probably not the greatest time to find out whether it's positive or negative the night before the show. Eating well the night before the show. So again, not particularly straying from what you would normally eat, but certainly not going out and getting binging on a heap of pizza and chocolate and ice cream and sugary things or anything like that. You want to just have a pretty normal meal, what you would normally have, something that's going to help you sleep, something that's not going to keep you up all night, not overeating or anything like that. So those kind of things, you want to stick to what you normally do as much as possible. That brings me to a note that I've written here, which is using visualization techniques and practicing breathing your way out of nerves. So I'm sure we've all experienced times where we have had a dream, or where we've been sitting and maybe daydreaming, or sitting and even thinking about a worst case scenario about something. So for example, we're sitting around, we haven't heard from a loved one for a while, they're not answering their phone, they're not on Facebook, we can't find them, we can't track them down, etc., etc., and we start to think of worst case scenarios. So what happens when we start to think of those worst case scenarios is that we start to create a physiological response in our body. Our heart rate goes up, our mouth gets dry, our breathing increases, we might sweat, those kind of things. So I don't particularly want you to necessarily take yourself to that level, unless of course that is your experience at competitions. If you can actually sit down and imagine yourself at the competition, riding into the arena, being judged, going around on your horse, and you can actually just close your eyes and really picture yourself being there, what will happen is that you will create the physiological response in your body. So your heart rate will go up, or whatever you normally experience at a show will happen to your body. And because you're sitting on your couch at home, you will be able to breathe your way out of it and can talk your way out of it. So you'll be able to say, okay, you know, I can, you know, it's all right, I can breathe, and practice some breathing techniques and things like that to calm all those responses down. And the more that you can take yourself to that place and bring yourself out of it, once you get to the actual show and you experience those things, you can take the time to do the same thing and bring yourself back out of that state. So obviously you're not going to remove yourself from the show, but eventually with that visualization technique, you should be able to start visualizing it and having a much lower response to it, and imagining yourself feeling confident and enjoying it and all that sort of stuff that we all want to feel when we're at a competition. So it's a really powerful technique. Most of us don't do it, and it will only take you 2 or 3 minutes a day. But if you spent 2 to 5 minutes a day visualizing yourself at a competition, riding into that arena and calming yourself down and feeling confident while you're visualizing those things, I'd almost guarantee that you'll feel a lot better in your next competition, because what you're doing is you're training your brain and you're training your body. This is how I want to feel when I'm in that arena. This is how I want to feel when I'm at the show. The next thing that I've written down is remembering why you're there. So we spend all this time, all this emotion, all this money, everything that we do for these horses, to have these horses, to experience this relationship with these horses, to go, you know, take them out to a competition, to feel proud of them, to go out there and say, you know, look at my horse and look what we can do as a team. And yet we seem to forget that when we go into a competition, and we get so nervous about it. And I think that was one of the most, the biggest changes that happened for me last year in the States, was I finally just said to myself, you know, I'm here, I'm riding this horse, you know, I'm in the United States, I'm riding this amazing horse of somebody's, I'm riding in the top hand competition. You know, this is exactly, you know, it's one of my dreams. It's one of my bucket list things. Obviously, we go every year now. We're so blessed to, you know, we're forever in debt to Dink and Karen for letting us use their wonderful horses and getting us all the way there. And I think it just takes that moment for you to go, you know what, this is why I'm here. This is what I do. All of this is the early mornings, the late nights, the feeding up, the squishing around in mud, all of those hardships. This is why I do it, to enjoy this competition. So I think if we can just take the time to remind ourselves why we're actually there and why we want to do it, it will take a big weight off our shoulders. It's not for anybody else. It's for you, and it's for your horse. The next thing that brings me to, which I have touched on it a little bit, but breathing and meditation techniques. So taking 5 minutes to be able to breathe and practice meditation to ground yourself will help. You need to practice these techniques at home first, and then you'll be able to apply them in competition when you're experiencing those, your heart rate is increasing and all those things that happen when you do get nervous. So being able to manage your breath and calm yourself down at any time, any place is something that's very powerful to own, and being able to do that is going to help you a lot when you get to that competition, and not being afraid to take 5 at that competition. You know, we often get there and we're running around and we're saying, I need to get to the nominations office and I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to do this. It's okay to just slow down for a minute, stand where you are, take a couple of minutes to just breathe, slow everything down, and then we go again and we get started. You know, if you keep doing the hustle, it'll escalate. Okay, so just taking those moments to slow yourself down and breathe, close your eyes, ground yourself, and then you can go ahead and go on with whatever it is that you're doing. The final thing that brings me to is external remedies, I suppose you would call them. So this is your things like rescue remedy. A lot of people tell me that they have success with rescue remedy. Lavender as an aromatherapy, obviously lavender's a calming thing. I would recommend also making sure that your vitamin B levels are up, or taking vitamin B, because if you're low in vitamin B, it is going to contribute to your anxiety levels. So that's important, and it's not very hard to take a vitamin B tablet every day. Well, every day forever, but if you only want to do it for the week out from competition, I'm sure that'd be fine as well. So I think that things like the external helps like rescue remedy and what I just mentioned, I think that those can help us in conjunction with a lot of the other things. I don't think that when we're nervous in competition that there's going to be any one fix. I don't think that you can pick one thing and think, oh cool, she just told me rescue remedy, I'll just go to the chemist and that's going to fix all my problems. It's not. It's about knowing, you know, have I practiced in mock competition? Have I gone to training days, and am I comfortable or am I okay about riding around in front of people at a training day or at a clinic? Am I okay? What is my behavior at a show? Do I normally hide myself away, or am I okay to walk around and keep myself not busy, but, you know, active and talking to people and things like that? So I think if we go through all of those things, and the other thing that I wanted to talk about, one final thing that I wanted to talk about is, of course, preparation before the competition. So there's a lot that we can do both on and off the horse to prepare for competition. Obviously, when we go away, we go and ride horses that we don't see for an entire year. And we land, and we probably have about 3 or 4 days to ride them before we're competing on those horses. So, you know, Phil and I both do a lot at home in order to prepare for competition. Our discipline's Cowboy Dressage, so we make sure that we're riding through tests. We're familiar with the arena. We're familiar with the letters. We're pretty familiar with the patterns. We haven't chosen the ones that we've nominated for yet, but prior preparation is going to take you a long way, because you're going to be able to walk into that arena and say, I've done everything I can to be fully prepared for this moment, and that's a statement that you certainly need to be able to make for yourself. I haven't touched a lot on training the horses here because I think that that's a given, but I will mention it for the sake of the video, for the sake of the show. Making sure that you've prepared your horse as much as you possibly can in the lead up to that competition. Not turning up to a competition with a horse that has been spelling for a month, or not ridden, or whatever it is. Hopefully that situation is unavoidable. Sometimes it's not unavoidable, but knowing, like I said, being able to walk into that arena and go, I've done everything I can, and my horse knows it, and I know it, and I know that my horse knows all of the things that are going to be called upon for this competition, and I'm happy with where we're at. And knowing that you're the only person you're competing, I know it's a cliche, but the only person you're competing against is yourself. Is the person that you were yesterday, and the person that you and your horse were yesterday. So keeping all those things in mind hopefully will help you be more confident at competition. Like I say, I don't think that we can ever have zero nerves at competition unless we're doing it, every weekend, and it's something that's we're very experienced at. But I think that there's a lot that we can do in regards to preparing for competition. So I hope that these pointers tonight have helped you in some way, and I hope that you apply them, and you can keep me updated as to your progress in regards to your nerves in competition. And please let me know how you go. Thank you so much for joining me on this Monday Night Live. We're two hours ahead here in New Zealand, so I've had to stay up a little bit past my bedtime in order to bring this to you. So hopefully it wasn't too, disjointed in any way. So I really appreciate you guys joining me for this Monday Night Live, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. I don't have the topic for next week written down, but it will be in the cover photo of Tanja Kraus Horsemanship. So thank you all so much for joining. I hope you all have a great week with your horses, and I'll see you next Monday.